Back in 2022, Down4Sound introduced the JP83 and shook up the bass head market. Well, guess what? They are back once again here in 2024 with the JP93. If you're ready to find out if the amp dyno can handle it, make sure you leave a thumbs up. In this video, I'll tell you all about it, include showing you the amp dyno test all the way down to a half an ohm. Stay tuned. First up inside the box, we have the owner's manual, which includes a JP53, 73, and 93. This is their newest versions for 2024. We'll get to the specs here in a little bit. You also get 3 what the hex wrenches as well as a small screwdriver. In addition, you get the USB-C to USB-A cable. This is for the Bluetooth remote we will show here shortly. Let's take it out of the box and take a closer look. You notice now these match the amplifier. The JP83 we showed a couple years ago, they came black standard. Of course, it has the clip light, it has the protect light, it has voltage, it has temperature, all the good stuff you need, plus a really nice potentiometer. I will show here that one sweep of the potentiometer now goes from 0 to 100, whereas before the old version, it took 4 sweeps to get it to 100. So they have definitely upgraded that, made it better for the win. Now here is the JP93. This is in the orange finish. It does come in multiple finishes. I will show you here that shortly. And yeah, overall, the amp is just bigger than the JP83. We will show a comparison to that as well. On the Down4Sound shop, check links in the video description. There are 9 different colors of the JP93, so choose your favorite. These typically sell for $19.99. Sometimes they're on sale, but yeah, right at $2,000. And here is the JP83 and the comparison with the 93. Can see it's an additional about 4 inches or so on the length, and we will show the guts later and you'll see the difference as well on the internals that make this thing a real beast. Now as far as the true dimensions here, 29 inches for the length, 9.4 inches for the width, 2.7 inches for the height, and also millimeter equivalents there for people outside the US. Let's take a look at one end of the amplifier. First off, you can see this little hole at the top left. This is the Bluetooth voltage adjustment for the remote bass knob that is Bluetooth controlled. Again, it does have to be powered by the USB, but that allows you to adjust your voltage to match your system. We also have Power Protect clip LED indicators here. We have Tiffany style RCAs, the very fat ones, very nice quality. We also have the input gain control, 0.2 volts to 6 volts. We have a subsonic adjustment from 10 Hertz up to 50 Hertz. Low pass filter, 250 Hertz down to 30 Hertz. This is 12 dB per octave. Then we also have a phase control from 0 to 180 degrees. Now we don't talk a lot about phase control and what it does. In order to set it properly, my suggestion would be have a friend adjust the phase control when you're playing a 40 Hertz tone from your seat in the car and just see which sounds best. If your subs are facing up or facing back, it may need to be adjusted some, so just play with it and see what sounds the best. This amp also includes bass boost variable frequency as well as boost up to 9 dB. And we have adjustments here for the subsonic low pass and bass frequency, all using clicky potentiometers. Now these clicky potentiometers are not for the gain control, which is kind of odd because a lot of times SPL competitors have to use hot glue to keep the gains from adjusting on themselves. Since this is a half bridge amp, you can strap this with another JP93, and you also have 4 gauge speaker outputs. It is a monoblock, but you have 2 different outputs for your subs. They are linked together internally though, so you don't have to use both unless you just need to. Here on the opposite end, we have massive 1 ohm inputs. We have 3. If you're using the amp at 1 ohm or lower, I would recommend using dual inputs as well, because you'll see later when you see the amp dyno test. In the very center, the 12-volt remote for turning on the amplifier. This monster amp is rated 4400 watts at 4 ohms, 7100 at 2 ohms, 9300 at 1 ohm, and requests a 1000 amp fuse external because it's not provided, of course. I cannot stress enough, this amplifier needs juice to provide the output. We're using Yinlong XS Power LTO cells, 320 amp hours, as well as 200 amps of charging to do the test you're going to see today on the amp dyno. And this amp pulls a lot of current, and you will see that later in the video. Now let's power up the SMD to more engineering amplifier dyno so we can perform the test. Here on the left, you will see the power output in watts. In the middle, the ohm load. On the right, the voltage. You will also see the temperature of the amp dyno climbing. I actually had to give it a couple different breaks so we could finish the test.
This here's my favorite part.
Okay, we have the JP93 on the bench at 4 ohms. It's rated 4,400 watts at 14.4. Let's try it certified to 1% distortion. And here we go. It's climbing up. And oops, over 0. What the heck does that mean? That means the amp dyno is overloaded for the inputs. It's rated to do 5,000 watts at 4 ohms. Here you can see the chart. And obviously this amp does more than 5,000 watts certified at 4 ohms. So how do we get around that? Well, we can get out the AMM1. The AMM1 handles up to 15,000 watts. And we can use the dyno's loads as well. So we're going to have it here wired at 4 ohms. And let's try this. Now, the difference is this tests up to clipping, not 1% distortion. So we won't have a measurement for 1% distortion. But we got 5710 at 4 ohms up to clipping. So let's switch it over and do the dynamic test. Again, we couldn't use the dyno to do the dynamic test because it would just display over. So here dynamically we got 5786 at 4 ohms. So over 5,000 watts at 4 ohms is a very powerful amplifier. Let's move on to 2 ohms. It's rated 7,100 watts at 14.4. Let's try it out on the dyno. Now the dyno can handle up to 10,000 watts at 2 ohms, so I think we're good. Let's find out. Certified 1% distortion, almost 9,000 watts, 8965 at 14.26. Let's reset the dyno here for the uncertified mode, which takes us up to the clipping point. Can we get more than 9,000 watts? Right at it, 9,009, 14.22. Reset the dyno here for the dynamic burst, which sends a 40 hertz pulse tone into the amp. And it's right about the same, but it jumped up there. We got some surge there on our lithium bank. Can give us some extra voltage, 9465 at 14.58. Now let's move on to the 1 ohm test. It's rated 9,300 watts at 14.4 volts. Certified test first to 1% distortion, and boom, 11,984. Can I get a like to the video? Crazy, almost 12,000 watts at 1 ohm. Up to 1% distortion. What about up to clipping? Let's try this run here. See what we get. Look at this, over 13,000, almost 13,500, 13,446. 13.8. We're still well under that 14.4 that it's rated, so it would do even more of that. I just can't keep the voltage up that high. Dynamic at 1 ohm, we're getting close to 14.4, 14.35. We get 16,268 watts. Here are the results of all the tests. We notice at 8 ohms, we didn't count cleanly past 1,100 watts. And then at 4 ohms, we overload the amp dyno with more than 5,000 watts. And we did not show the efficiency for most of it, and the reason was because the clamps just counted up so quickly. We're not sure the accuracy, but we did get over 1,400 amps at 1 ohm. So just understand you need a lot of current for this amp. Now we compare the JP83, we can see here at 4 ohms and 2 ohms, the JP93 gives us about 2,000 watts more at each of those. So with Rise, the JP93 is going to be a much more powerful amp. If you want to see the test under 1 ohm, make sure you watch to the very end of the video. Even though this amp has a clear plexi bottom, let's take that off so we can get a better look at the internals. And here we don't have to ask where the beef is because it is right here. You don't have to know much about amplifiers to see the internals of this one and think, man, this thing's pretty beefy, including the 8 toroidal transformers here.
What I use for the toroidal coil.
This is not a Mickey Mouse program!
You also may or may not notice the filter caps for the power supply side are now Nichicons. That's right, we asked Down4Sound a while back, hey, give us some better quality capacitors, and they have done it on the power supply side. We will see here shortly when we get to the output section with all the beefy 1,500 microfarad capacitors that they are not Nichicons at this time, but they are working on getting those. But you can see there's 20 huge 1,500 microfarad capacitors here for the output section, and these are Samha's 250 volt, 1500 microfarad, 85 degrees Celsius. We'll love to see these maybe one day upgraded to better quality, but these are still good quality as far as OEMs go. And there you can see the way the amp boards are connected in the middle because this amp board is so long. And yes, this one has writing on the board as usual. Big dog. This is the big dog from Down4Sound. Of course, the JP Monos 33 and higher have Bluetooth modules for the bass remote. And here it is, you can see at the bottom left of the amplifier. Now let's move on to the pros and cons of things I like and what I think could be better, at least things to be aware of. First, rated power plus, of course, in all the modes. Triple 1.0 inputs for your power and ground. Also, these are linkable to use with other JP93s. Nichicon caps on the power supply side. Tiffany RCAs there for the inputs and for the link. Bluetooth bass remote. 9 color choices, and can it handle low impedances? We will find out. Things to be aware of: the Bluetooth remote does need power. There's no internal battery for that. The positive and negatives are not in groups. Make sure you hook it up correctly. Please be aware of the electrical system required. In most cases, it will cost as much as the amplifier. And it is a Korean amp. More money, but it is better quality as well. This one worked well overall. You will see here at the very end of the video, it's all the way down to 0.5 ohm. We did have the JP53 and 73. That will be in a separate video because this one's just too long. So stay tuned to the very end and we'll see all the other tests. But thanks for watching. Big D, I'm out of here.
What do you think, 40,000 watts? 40,000 at 0 ohm. 0.
Well, not quite 0 ohms. We will try 0.8 here with the JP93. We will try certified first. 1% distortion at 40 hertz. And there you go, 12, oh, it jumped at the end, 13,318 watts at 13.75. What about up to the clipping point? Let's try it here, see what we get, over 13,000 I bet. Oh, 14,775 at 13.69. Then we ran the dynamic test at 0.8, and look at this. Are we going to get 20,000 watts? We're right at it. 19,609 at 14.47. Crazy. Now let's move on to 0.67. Again, close to 0 ohms. I don't know why people wire amps this low. Let's try it anyway and see. This amp is capable of handling obviously 14,442 watts at 13.62 volts. But we're not done yet. We're going to try it uncertified up to clipping at 0.67. Let's watch it bust that 14,000. 15,722 watts at 13.49. And what about dynamic? The test, some people will say, means nothing. It means something because the amp dyno wouldn't have that mode if it didn't mean anything. 21,307 at 14.26. And finally, 0.5 ohm. We're going to try the dynamic test and see what we get here. 40 hertz, pulse track. Here it goes. Are you ready? Boom! 25,000 watts at 13.69. JP83, we're able to hold a little bit higher voltage, so it did about 24,000. But this amp is the biggest and baddest from Down4Sound. Thanks as always for watching. More videos coming. Big D, I'm out.